Ambassador Edward Boateng, good morning, sir, and thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, and and thank you for having me.
Yo, but you know what I'm saying. Yo, yenin komo na yembisa yeho what warranted these reports na ye kan wasem no. I know say for over 2 years now, no, we've been doing this, but what really informed the decision to start it in the first place?
I think the state ownership report is, as you said, it's been going on for 2 years now. But it's also a way of SIGA being able to assess what all these state entities are doing for the benefit of the major shareholder, that's the government of Ghana. It also helps the Ministry of Finance, because at the end of the day, they have to pull all these resources into one basket to be able to determine the GDP of the country. And that also helps in our ability to undertake various projects and also to go onto the markets to borrow if necessary. So the ownership report is also gives each and every one of us a clear picture of what is happening. And since it started now, I mean, even though we're reporting 2.6 billion in 2020, that's half of what was the figure in 2019, 2018, before the losses were much, much higher. So I think every year as we go, the CEOs will be more careful. CEOs will be looking more closely, and these numbers will gradually come down.
Now, Yembra, the details, I would want for us to start from one Kasao commenter, Umekiye, on in the report, where you make the point to say you reform the governance of state-owned enterprises and maintain strong oversight over their performance. Targets will be set for the board and management of each of the enterprises, and they will be monitored diligently. Good performance on the targets and attract rewards, and poor performance will attract sanctions. Where are we with the reforms now?
Already the target setting is taking place. We have the various SOEs that sign performance contracts with SIGA, and we monitor through we have a setup at SIGA that monitors the performance of these entities. Now, what we have done in the last few weeks also is to be able to bring all the oversight agencies. Like yesterday, we had a very important meeting at Alisa Hotel. There were over 300 chief executives and board chairpersons available on mobile. And we brought the heads of PSC, Public Service Commission, Internal Audit, Auditor General, Ghana Revenue Authority, the AG's office, and other agencies to basically share with these CEOs the expectations, and also to make them aware of the consequences. Hitherto, these meetings, such meetings were not taking place. But right now, SIGA is leading that effort. So obviously, no institution can come with the excuse that I didn't have an internal auditor or the Auditor General hasn't done this. So I believe if we're able to connect the dots, it will provide a stronger base for us to achieve our objectives. Also, some of the institutions genuinely have problems. Sometimes when we hear of these huge numbers, some of them are also legacy debts, which are sitting on the books of some of these institutions. And we're now looking at ways to maybe clean up some of these books so that we'll have a clearer and true picture of the state of affairs of some of these institutions, organizations, and companies. So it's still work in progress, but I believe in the next year to 2 years, we'll have a clearer picture of where our SOEs stand. But our major achieve. If you look at our resource and asset base as a country, SOEs control about more than 50% of the asset base of CROI. However, when it comes to GDP contribution to our gross domestic product, they are doing less than 5%, according to the Ministry of Finance. The estimation of the Minister of Finance is that they should be contributing about 30% to GDP.
Okay.
So that is our target. So that's why we're trying to clean the books and make sure that our numbers are right. Because if they're able to do the 30%, it will broaden and give us a larger physical space for the Ministry of Finance to really go out onto the markets to raise more money and also bring more money into the kitty. I mean, GRA can bring more money into the kitty for our developmental projects. So the Minister of Finance was there yesterday, and I would urge you to get a copy of his speech because he touched on all these issues. And these are very important national issues that we should all take interest in.
But my sense of the report, these SOEs here come once and one more categorization and what was captured?
Well, yesterday we went through, and I mean, some of these SOEs, especially those who have not presented their management accounts for 2019, 2020, they were all mentioned. I mean, we mentioned their names, so they know themselves. So I'm hoping that they will do better for 2022 because Sevi, Oma pocket money class on school and I say on Fankolidia, Obanos was so prefufra. Say he has to account for Tikana Diamano and Sana, Waman Sikabia account. And he doesn't, and I don't, most of us, the challenge is that how can you run a company and maybe for 2 or 3 years now, you fuse or you have not been able to put together your management or audited accounts. It's not acceptable under any jurisdiction. But having said that, no, this has been going on for a very long time. So it's now that the president has really taxed all of us to do the right thing. And it's something that I really think the president and the Minister of Finance should be commended for, because if you look at the progress within the last 2 years, it's been very commendable. And particularly this year, last year, only 19 SOEs presented accounts which were captured into the national accounts. But this year we had 47. And I'm hoping that next year, we'll have more, maybe 100. Once we do that, if you look at our balance sheet, it will have a better and clearer picture of where we really stand as a country, because a lot of our assets are not being captured into the national accounts. So, yeah, may seek a thing. And also, it doesn't give a true picture of the financial position of the country. So that is what we are pushing for right now at SIGA. And now that SIGA is working very closely with all the other agencies, who will achieve results, because CEOs no money be beyond between Janiako. Because first, no, they are share internal auditor share now, no, they are share auditor general share now, no, so they are share here another agency or Ministry of Finance. But you see, we all sit at the table and we discuss these things. And see, if who are some, if we say agency being a hamper of progress, when we sit at the table, that problem will be solved in 2 minutes. So that's what we are doing now. And that was the essence of yesterday's meeting.
Now, I am looking at the performance overview in the report, where a summary of the financial performance of specified entities are captured. State-owned enterprises, joint venture companies, other state entities. Then it goes on to mention minority interests. What is of interest to me, the profitability of state-owned enterprises. The latter part, unfortunately, as at the end of year 2020, SOEs reported an aggregate net loss of 2.61 billion Ghana cedis, continuing the trend of unprofitability over the period under review. As it stands now, are they profitable?
As it stands now, from the report our SOEs are not profitable. But their numbers are beginning to look good until that will change. And as I've said, this history of loss making, and then it's a 65-year-old problem from the time our first president set up these SOEs. They've always underperformed. And the oversight was not that strong in those days. But also, the purpose for which they were set up, has changed. In those days, it was to create jobs. Sometimes it was for national pride and all other things, which really, they don't, if you look at it, it doesn't help to enhance profitability in any way. Those things are changing now. And that's why SIGA is going through all these performance agreements with them. So we have governance structures in place. Auditor General has come in. The internal auditor is now going to have assess itself more so that a lot of the leakages, the waste can even be prevented before it happens, as Dr. Osai said yesterday. So it's work in progress, but it's getting better. I mean, the 2.6 billion is a high number, but if you look at the losses in 2019, it was 5 point something. So we've halved it. And if we can halve it again in 2022, it means that in another year, the losses will be minimal. But we also have to be clear. SOEs have to not only have a profitability function, they are also to provide jobs. And sometimes, providing jobs to make sure that people get a decent living. If you always make profitability the trademark, you lose sight. I mean, if we take Happy FM, for instance, how many people are working there versus how many people are working at Radio Ghana? So, and there are a lot of places that Radio Ghana may go that Happy FM for be a monko. The mandates sometimes are different, but still, we want Radio Ghana to make a profit, or at least to be able to generate enough revenue so that they don't run to government for handouts, as has been the trend in the past. That is what we're also trying to stop.
Now, still staying on performance, I couldn't help but notice entities are government or minority interest in them, rather performed very well. Is it a matter of management, seeing that the minority interest entities basically have the private sector, they are private sector led, where government has some small shares in there? Could it be a matter of management if the minority interest entities are doing better?
That's one. Management is one. Two, second one, the internal systems they have to avoid unneeded waste. The systems in those organizations, it works better. I mean, because there's more oversight responsibility. So that's why we are doing these things now. Now, boards in SOEs will have more power to sanction their CEOs. And also the boards themselves are being trained for them to understand what their responsibilities are. In the past, a lot of these things were not done. Over the last 6 weeks, we've had a lot of training for board directors and chairmen, and they've all gone through that training. So now you cannot say owning responsibility. Also, there will be sanctions. I mean, some of these, you don't start SOE board as well. Let's also normal call basa. You, the board member or the board chairman, there are sanctions, and the AG can come after you. And we're going to have another session, hopefully in the coming month, with the Attorney General, for him to make people aware that say I didn't just for the fun of it, but it's all when you call a making sure say the management and CEO are meeting their mandate. So these things will change. But again, these things didn't happen over the last 3 years or the last 10 years. As I told you, it's a 65-year-old problem. We set up a lot of these companies without proper oversight bodies. And that's why we've had these challenges. I mean, if you look at any SOE, you take it right now and give it to a private sector person. It's not that a private sector person is just really more smarter or has any extra thing more than the other management, but they will come with strict structures to enforce discipline. And therefore, you realize that the loss-making SOE within 2 years will start making some profits under different management. So that's what we are trying to do. But we should also be mindful that not all entities can be under private sector management. There are a lot of places where we need the government to be in those areas. So that will continue. But in the areas where we feel that government can also exit and give it to private sector, where the public need or the public good is not so high, SIGA will also make those recommendations to government.
Now, Mekai remarks in the report, the part which has to do with performance contract system. I'll try and summarize where you say that the authority in the year under review successfully negotiated and signed the 2020 performance contract agreement with 63 specified entities, representing a 34% increase over the 2019 figure of 47 entities. How an area conversation and I shall say not yedi and one come say if entities are incurring costs to the tune of 2-point-something billion. Now, one market you are one more LGA as CEOs, as board members, some over 80,000. Now, has there been a review of the structure of the remuneration of CEOs and boards in these state-owned enterprises?
In the first place, it's only a very small percentage, less than probably 10% of CEOs who make that figure of 80%, 80,000. So let's put that in perspective. Most SOEs are not making that kind of salaries. You'll be surprised. A lot of them are really doing sacrificial jobs. So I want to put that on record. So we cannot take that small percentage of 10%, and make it like every SOE CEO is making that kind of money. That's not true. Secondly, a lot of the boards are not paying those type of fat allowances that are thrown out. That's a lot of them. If you look at private sector boards, they make more money. If you sit on the board of a private sector company or a bank, you get a handsome remuneration. It's not the same for board members sitting on SOE boards. So we need to be very clear on that. Now, going to the issue of performance. As I said to you, it's a 65-year-old problem. When we set up these companies, we did not put in the required structures, the required discipline, the required targets. It's now that we're doing it, especially over the last 2 years. So the results are beginning to manifest. But I bet you, until with time, and I can assure the Ghanaian public said we're working hard to change it. And I see it was a very good meeting. And these are the sort of meetings that media houses should follow. Because all the CEOs were there, the Minister of Finance gave a very, very good speech. And I would urge you once again, say, prepare speech, because it basically categorizes the expectations of government, the expectations of the president. And there's also going to be a lot of expenditure cuts already. He says that all CEOs, especially the political appointees, salary should be cut by 20%. That is going to be enforced. Travel bans to the end of the year, unless it's very, very critical. That is going to be enforced. In terms of general expenditure, cutting back on it, that is going to be enforced. And all these will be savings to the government. These are things that have never really been done. And I think that it's a first step. And little drops of water make a mighty ocean. So I am very positive that we're all going in the right direction. But it's something that didn't start today. But also, Ghana is not the first country. I mean, I was in China the last 4 years. Chinese SOEs are doing very well now, likes of Sanohydro, Moha, Moye, Yakwan, Biamain, parent companies called Power China, and others. If you go back some years back, before they started their reform program, they were also making huge losses because the objectives were not clear in those days. It was just to provide jobs. And she said, company no, lose money cry, yes, you say, a lot of them had more people than they even needed. So when they went to their reform, they reformed a lot of these SOEs. And today, some of the SOEs are the best in the world. We all heard about Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher when she came to power in the United Kingdom some years back. British companies were losing a lot of money, British Steel, British Airways, and she reformed a lot of them. And today, some of these institutions are some of the best in the world, like even their airlines, British Airways. I remember it was a loss maker for a very long time. So we are also going through our process now. And I believe that if we do it well with the help of the media and all that, some of our SOEs are well positioned to become leaders in their own way. If not in Africa, at least in the West Africa region here, we should dominate that market. And SOEs can help to lead the way. So that's what we are looking at. And the SOEs that don't function properly, or we feel that they are not capable, no, obviously we as SIGA have to recommend changes in management, or even recommend to the president that the government should exit. There are some businesses that government should exit, because really, when we were a younger country, yes, government had to be in that space. But you see, we are 65 years old, so some of these SOEs to government can exit or take minority shares and let private sector people lead those organizations.
Final question, the entire Enka. So in the private sector, a company being who say Ejumano and Koso and Wadeno Abba from one more output, their capacity to even meet their breaking even points, problematical. They look at staff shedding. In that respect, these SOEs here can once and Siga was there consideration say so one more staff no endorse no do not one more output in a meet a staff na Ejuma one more you better staff in so kakra.
Well, that job is not really for SIGA. It's for the management of that entity to decide. At SIGA, we'll do the performance contract and set your targets with you and make sure that you meet those agreed targets. Your transfer say, okay, type putting way necessary, you achieve. I know the SIGA will enforce it. Now, for you to achieve that, but you have to go back into your company and see how best it can be done. And one of the best ways of raising your bottom line, the first step is normally through expenditure cuts. So if expenditure cuts means Zebia Ushede will staffer, I think that's a decision for the board and management of that special entity to decide. That's not a SIGA role. But government is not only about profitability. I mentioned that earlier. Government is also about providing jobs and providing the space. So yes, if we take, again, let me use the Happy FM example. Maybe if you are looking at a profitability ratio of probably 20%, I don't expect GVC to be looking at that. Maybe 5% will be okay. So the needs assessment, a bit different, because at the end of the day, when government makes profit, it's still going to be used for the people. So we cannot get a lot of people out of work. But we have to make sure that we minimize the leakages, we minimize the waste. There's a lot of waste in our public sector. Seriously, even more than the overbloated employee. There's a lot of waste. There's a lot of low productivity. So Those are the things that we need to enhance so that we can still have more people working. And I don't think the challenge is to get people out of work. The challenge is to improve their level of productivity. A lot of people in the public sector, they are working 3-4 hours if you really quantify it, compared to their colleagues in the private sector who are working 7 to 8 hours. 7 to 8 hours of solid productivity. Those are the things that we need to change. And also people that
you have just 1 minute remaining.
Not now kind newspapers. Now we have private business. Is it right?
All right.
Is it right? And you cannot come and do that at Happy FM. Some mobile
Dabi.
But we call government offices. That's what people are doing.
All right.
At the end of the day, we also have to be each other's keeper, because at the end of the day, it's all in our idea.
All right.
Even though we mostly focus on politicians, we in the public sector, we also perform. We can do better, all of us, and all of us have to push each other so that we get to the desired destination. Because if the government generates more money, they use it for education, health, roads, and we're all beneficiaries of it. We're all beneficiaries of it. So we at Bigade will continue to work with our stakeholders.
You have no call credit.
Well, it's unfortunate, we have to end the conversation, but at least some light has been thrown on the issue which was reported this morning. Some 2 billion Ghana cedis state-owned enterprises losses are care from state-owned enterprises. Ambassador Edward Boateng were here opening our that siga and what they kakra edit. I will encourage you to say you look for that report on our website, www.happyghana.com. Now also update yourself with the content therein. Also na noma backup me no me sebina fe no yembra back to the studio. And I shall say any komo the amounts CEOs are taking, the amounts ministers of states are taking, board members are taking. Omampani naketi okwampone sometimes almost times 3 of elected president naketi awoji. Eban is saying how did we get to the point where how we got to that point, we will try and understand it from a governance point of view. Say when you pour your mampany, the first gentleman of the land, Naketia is a chain. One more no appoint to almost say Mumba Boamini and Chichiro Woman. We'll try to get an understanding of that. And also, Dolphin Fumigation Services for CN Countries, Minia, Insurance Shasia, to talk. For most people living in areas developing areas, in that's all the bushes were around, Minia. It's time you got your home fumigated. By this time there, I want ABPP, scorpions in ABPP, insects in ABPP, and the Bombardian so be fumigated area honum, senior M1 and how so a pretty restaurant, to a pretty hotel, warehouse, and as a farm, and a ship house, Biana, Mepacho, Ninano, Dolphin Fumigation Services for between our born fumigate area honum. Pacho, one more Malam Junction, one more adjacent Kitech Towers. Accra between from 050-407-1884 and 034229281 now no more Edin Komo. Yanko back to Ahoman Ambassador Edward Boateng and Wiem Commodity. Ambassador, we apologize sincerely for the line drop here, but now you were making a point.
I think that I'm a Casario and a line on Catty off into the medal was
Yo.
I think we are committed to ensuring the present vision of making our SOEs profitable and also efficient. And we need the help of media in that. I think as a fourth estate of government, you can also make sure CEOs who have been put in charge of the public personnel do what is expected of them. I think it's our collective responsibility.
Ambassador, better was a place watching Benani Dinkumo.
Which made them also be brave, and I'm happy from a TF4.